If you are not familiar with Bootstrap, how it works is you apply classes to your HTML elements, and that is how you format the page. Bootstrap is probably one of the most popular CSS frameworks. It's really easy to use. You just need to know HTML and CSS. It is responsive, it uses mobile first, and it is compatible with all the different web browsers. Basically, it requires HTML5, so you do need to have the doc type HTML statement at the beginning of your page. And in MVC apps, it has been incorporated into the layout view. Because the layout view is using a navigation bar and other Bootstrap features. You'll also notice it in other views as well. As we get into Entity Framework and we generate pages, you'll notice that tables are all using Bootstrap formatting, and it's basically incorporated into most of our views. And you can customize the Bootstrap. Okay? You just have to know what classes to apply. You should have the viewport meta tag automatically in your layout page. That is required for a responsive page, whether you're using Bootstrap or you're formatting your own in CSS. That should be in there automatically. And if you want to format using Bootstrap and you would like to lay your page out in columns and rows, there is a feature that is very similar to grid view in CSS. It uses containers, rows, and columns. Containers are used all over in Bootstrap. And there are two types of containers. There is a fixed width, and then there is a fluid. The difference is that fluid takes up the entire width of the screen, and the fixed width does not. And to show you what these look like, we're going to come in here, and it's kind of hard to see in this example. So I'm going to add a Jumbotron to this, because that'll apply a little gray background. So this is what container looks like, and you can see that it does not take up the full width. And now let me do container fluid so you can see the difference. That does take up the full width. Okay, so there is a distinct difference. Now let me change it back. So which one should you use? It just depends on how you want your page to look. Now, as far as dividing your page into rows and columns, there are three classes that you can use. There is a row class, and that is a container. So your columns should be inside the row class. And then there are two different ways to apply columns. You can just use COL, and that will make everything an equal width. So if you have three elements that you've applied COL to, each one is going to be a third. Now, quite often when we lay out pages, we don't want all of our columns to have the same width. And so that's where this col size and then column number comes into play. So the col size column number requires a col and dash, and then you're going to give it a size. SM for small, MD for medium, LG for large, XL for extra large. And then those sizes correspond to the size of the screen. I tend to choose either small or medium. Bootstrap is smart enough to know that if you use medium, but you're viewing on a mobile device, it automatically sizes down. Okay, so I tend to choose small or medium just because I want to make sure it looks good on mobile. Because if it looks good on a smaller mobile screen, it's going to look good on a larger screen. Following the size, you have a column number, and the number can be between 1 and 12. 12 is the full width. 1 is 1/12 of the width. The screen widths that I have listed are a little different than the textbook. They match the W3C website and the Bootstrap website, so I tend to think they are correct. The classes can be combined to create a pretty dynamic site. And I've got a couple examples. So in this little example, I chose a medium device. But again, if we viewed it on a small screen, okay, it adjusts. So it adjusts for small, medium, large, all of it. So basically, the first column, I wanted to be about 1/4. And then I wanted the second column to be, 75%. And that's basically what I have. And then for this next example, I wanted to show you what call looks like by itself. So I have 3 columns, and I did not specify a device size, and I did not specify a column number. So what it does is it just makes them each the same width. So each one is about 1/3 of the width. Now, if you want to play a little with this, okay, you can come out here. You can see that this has got a small 8, small 4. And if you wanted to add another column here, you can. Just remember that your columns have to add up to 12. So if I did something like this, I would end up with another row. Okay, it's going to wrap down. So if I did, let's say 2, 6, and 3. Nope, 4. No, 3 is right. Okay, let's run this. And it looks like it is wrapping, and that is probably because I forgot to change it here. Let's try it again. Okay, so you can kind of see. Let me add a color to this last one because it'll be easier to see. Okay, so you can kind of see how that looks. And then we can actually change. What if I make the middle one 1? Remember to change it in both spots. Okay, then it just does this. You'll notice it's not taking up all 12, so it just adds white space on the right-hand side. Okay, so you can kind of play around with this and see what it looks like. As I mentioned, it is very similar to grid view CSS. Okay, the only difference is we're using Bootstrap classes. Now, how this applies to MVC. In our MVC apps, the views are all pulled into layout. So layout is where we need the container. Okay, so we either need the class equal to container or container fluid, depending on what you want. And then in the individual views is where we are going to lay out the columns and the rows. So this little example shows that in our layout, we have a container. Inside our container, we have render body, which is where it is pulling in the views. And then this is just an example of a view that has been split into a row with multiple columns.